Most people think reincarnation is nothing more than a belief, but one psychiatrist spent his entire career trying to understand what his patients were seeing under hypnosis. He expected memories buried in the subconscious. Instead, he uncovered stories that should have been impossible. Two strangers who had never met began remembering lives that seemed to belong to each other. The deeper he investigated, the harder it became to explain everything with psychology alone. Was it coincidence? Was it imagination? Or could some relationships truly survive death itself? Welcome back to Lotus and Law. I'm Molly. Every story plants a seed. Every seed shapes your future. Today, I want to share one of the most remarkable cases ever documented by Dr. Brian Weiss. It is a story about two strangers, a story that challenged everything he believed about the human mind, and perhaps everything we think we know about love, fate, and reincarnation. Whether you believe in past lives or not, I encourage you to keep an open mind until the very end, because what happened next is difficult to explain as mere coincidence. Dr. Brian Weiss was a respected psychiatrist trained in modern medicine. Like most physicians of his time, he believed consciousness was created by the brain and ended when the brain died. To him, reincarnation was simply not part of science. Everything changed when he began treating a patient named Catherine. While under hypnosis, she described vivid memories of lives she claimed to have lived centuries earlier. As she relived those experiences, many of her lifelong fears and emotional struggles began to disappear. Dr. Weiss spent years searching for another explanation, but after witnessing hundreds of similar cases, he found himself questioning everything he had once believed. He eventually came to believe that consciousness survives death, and that the soul may return again and again through many lifetimes. Among all the people who walked through his door, two patients would leave an impression unlike any other. They had never met. They came from different countries. They lived completely different lives. Yet what they remembered during hypnosis would become one of the most extraordinary cases Dr. Weiss had ever witnessed. The first patient was a woman named Elizabeth. She was intelligent, confident, and successful in her career. To most people, she appeared to have everything, but behind her smile, she carried a sadness that never seemed to leave. She had grown up in a small rural family, where her father often lost his temper. The children lived in constant fear of saying or doing the wrong thing. Those painful experiences shaped the way she viewed love and relationships. Several romantic relationships had ended in disappointment. Not long before meeting Dr. Weiss, she also lost her mother after a long illness. The grief left a deep emptiness that she could not escape. She had read Dr. Weiss's books and became interested in past life regression. At first, her only wish was simple. She hoped that somehow she could reconnect with the love she had shared with her mother. She had no idea that her journey would lead somewhere, far beyond anything she could have imagined. Around the same time, another patient arrived at the clinic. His name was Pedro. He came from Mexico. He was well-educated, kind, and came from a financially comfortable family. Yet his life was not without pain. His mother had always tried to control his relationships, believing she knew who was best for him. None of those relationships ever felt genuine. Then tragedy struck. Only 10 months earlier, Pedro had lost his older brother in a car accident. The loss shattered him. Like many grieving people who came to Dr. Weiss, he was searching for something deeper than comfort. He wanted to know whether death was truly the end. Neither Elizabeth nor Pedro knew that their lives were about to become connected. in a way that neither science nor coincidence could easily explain. As the therapy continued, both Elizabeth and Pedro began remembering different lifetimes. Each session seemed to uncover another chapter of a much longer journey. Pedro entered one life where he lived on the vast grasslands of what he believed was Mongolia. He was the youngest son of a tribal chief. As he grew older, he married the most beautiful young woman in the tribe. They built a peaceful life together and believed they would grow old side by side. But one day, enemy warriors attacked their village. When Pedro returned home, the village had been reduced to ashes. Many of his people had been killed. His wife had disappeared without a trace. He searched for her, but never found her again. The loss remained with him until the end of that lifetime. In another life, Pedro was forced to leave the woman he loved and become a monk. Years later, he formed a close bond with the elderly abbot of the monastery. One day, he looked into the old man's eyes and was overwhelmed by a feeling of recognition. Pedro realized the abbot was the same soul as the older brother he had lost in this life. For Dr. Weiss, this was not entirely surprising. Over many years, he had noticed that the same souls often returned together. They simply played different roles in different lifetimes. Parents became children, brothers became teachers, strangers became lifelong companions. During one of Elizabeth's later sessions, the atmosphere suddenly changed. She found herself standing in the ancient city of Jerusalem. More than 2,000 years ago, Elizabeth said, "In this life, I am a young girl named Miriamia. Life is hard. Roman soldiers enter the city often. Whenever they appear, fear spreads through the streets. My father, Eli, makes clay pottery with his own hands. Every day, he carries his work to the market, hoping to earn enough for us to survive. We have very little, but I never doubt how deeply he loves me. Just being with him makes me feel safe. Then everything changes. Roman soldiers surround my father. They seize him without mercy. They tie his wrists to the back of a wagon and drag him through the streets. I'm terrified. I scream. I beg them to stop, but no one can help him. The torture continues until he can barely breathe. When it is finally over, I run to him. I fall to my knees beside him and gently lift his head into my arms. His face is covered in blood. The light in his eyes is slowly fading. Fighting back my tears, I whisper, "I will always love you, Father." He looks at me one last time. Then, he closes his eyes. In that moment, it feels as though my heart dies with him. When the session ended, the room fell silent. Dr. Weiss was deeply moved by what he had just witnessed. He believed Elizabeth had experienced the tragic death of a father who had lived more than 2,000 years earlier. It was a heartbreaking story, but at the time he had no reason to think it was anything more than another past life memory. Several days later, Pedro returned for another regression. At first, he found himself in a completely different lifetime. Then everything changed. Pedro said, "My breathing becomes heavy. A crushing weight settles on my chest. When I open my eyes, I'm no longer in the therapy room. I'm somewhere else. Smoke fills the air. The smell of burning wood surrounds me. I hear people screaming. They're all dead. They killed everyone. The whole village is burning. The terror is overwhelming. I'm not watching it. I'm living it." Somewhere in the distance, Pedro heard Dr. Weiss's calm voice. He gently asks Petter to leave the violence behind, to move to an earlier, calmer moment. But instead, I find myself somewhere else. It's the end of another life. I can't move. Every breath sends pain through my body. Something has pierced deep inside me. I feel the warmth of blood slowly leaving my body. My vision begins to fade. Through blurred eyes, I watch the soldiers walk away. They've lost all interest in me. To them, I'm already dead. Then, I hear footsteps. Small, hurried footsteps running toward me. A young girl appears. She's my daughter. She drops to her knees beside me. With trembling hands, she gently lifts my head onto her lap. Tears stream down her face. She looks into my eyes and whispers, "I love you, Father." I want to tell her I love her too. I try to speak. I try with every last bit of strength I have, but I can't. No sound comes out. All I can do is look at her one last time. As I slowly close my eyes, the pain begins to disappear. Everything becomes quiet. Dr. Weiss sat perfectly still. Something about this scene felt strangely familiar. The daughter's words, the dying father, the unbearable sorrow. He had heard this story before. After the session, Dr. Weiss carefully reviewed his notes. The details were too similar to ignore. Both patients had described a loving father. Both had spoken of Roman soldiers. Both remembered the father's final moments, and both recalled the same words, spoken between a father and his daughter. Could two people who had never met somehow be remembering the same lifetime? Dr. Weiss decided to ask one more question. He gently guided Pedro back to that final scene. Then he asked, "What was your name in that life?" Pedro answered without hesitation, "My name was Elihu, but most people simply called me Eli." At that moment, Dr. Weiss felt a chill. Elizabeth had told him her father's name was Eli. Pedro had just given the very same name. He could no longer dismiss it as coincidence. For the first time in his career, he believed two different patients had remembered the same past life, from opposite perspectives. One had lived it as the father, the other as the daughter. Yet what astonished him even more was what he discovered next. Dr. Weiss began reviewing the records. From all of their previous regression sessions, he wondered whether this father and daughter had crossed paths in any other lifetime. Before long, another connection appeared. Pedro had once described a life on the Mongolian grasslands. He spoke of marrying a beautiful young woman, then losing her forever after their village was attacked. As Dr. Weiss continued reading Elizabeth's earlier records, another memory caught his attention. She too had remembered living on a vast grassland in western China. One day, enemy warriors attacked her village. She and several other women were taken away. When the attack was over, her husband returned. He found the village destroyed and believed she had died with everyone else. But she had survived. Dr. Weiss slowly put the pieces together. The wife Pedro had spent a lifetime searching for was Elizabeth. In one life, they had been father and daughter. In another, they had been husband and wife. The same two souls had found each other again, living different lives, playing different roles, yet never truly leaving each other behind. For Dr. Weiss, the discovery created an unexpected dilemma. As a physician, he had a responsibility to protect the privacy of every patient. He could not tell Elizabeth what Pedro had remembered, and he could not tell Pedro what Elizabeth had seen. Even if he believed they had shared multiple lifetimes, their stories did not belong to him. Still, he could not ignore the feeling that these two souls had returned to his office for a reason. Pedro's treatment was coming to an end. In just a few days, he would return to Mexico. If nothing happened, they would probably never meet again. After thinking carefully, Dr. Weiss made one small decision. He scheduled their appointments on the same day. He would not introduce them. He would not tell them anything. If they were truly meant to meet, he would let fate do the rest. On the day of their appointments, Elizabeth finished her session first. As she walked through the waiting room, she briefly looked at the man sitting there. It was Pedro. Their eyes met for only a moment. She smiled politely and continued toward the door. Later during his session, Pedro mentioned something unexpected. He told Dr. Weiss he found Elizabeth very attractive. He could not explain why. He simply felt drawn to her. Hearing this, Dr. Weiss wondered if his small arrangement had not been enough. 2 weeks later, Pedro returned for his final appointment before flying back to Mexico. Once again, Dr. Weiss scheduled Elizabeth at nearly the same time. This time, they noticed each other a little longer. They exchanged another smile, but neither of them spoke. When the appointments ended, Pedro left for the airport. Dr. Weiss believed the opportunity had passed. Perhaps this was where their story would end. But sometimes, life has plans that no one can arrange. Elizabeth was also traveling that day. She was supposed to fly to Boston for an important meeting. At the last minute, her flight was delayed. She had no choice but to change to another flight. By pure coincidence, or perhaps by something else entirely, she walked into the departure lounge. And there was Pedro, waiting for the very same airline. For the third time, their paths had crossed. This time, neither of them simply walked away. They started talking while waiting to board. The conversation felt effortless, as though they were continuing something that had never truly ended. Neither of them could explain why they felt so comfortable with someone they had only just met. When boarding began, Pedro asked if he could change his seat. He wanted to sit beside Elizabeth. Not long after the plane took off, it flew into a patch of severe turbulence. The aircraft shook violently. Passengers around them became anxious. Elizabeth instinctively tensed. Without thinking, Pedro reached over and gently held her hand. In that simple moment, something changed between them. It felt natural, almost familiar, as though the distance between two strangers had quietly disappeared. Their relationship continued after that flight. What began as a chance meeting slowly grew into love. For Dr. Weiss, this story became another powerful testament to reincarnation. It reflected the same pattern he had witnessed countless times over decades of regression therapy. The same souls seemed to return to one another again and again, sometimes as parents and children, sometimes as husband and wife, sometimes as siblings, friends, or even strangers whose lives touched for only a brief moment. The roles changed, but the connection remained. Dr. Weiss often compared souls to the leaves of a great tree. Each leaf appears separate, yet all are connected to the same living source. Some relationships last only a few minutes, others last a lifetime. Their true meaning is not measured by time, but by what they help us learn. From a Buddhist perspective, reincarnation is not simply a metaphor. It is a law by which life unfolds. When a lifetime comes to an end, the body dies, but the stream of consciousness does not. Every thought, every action, and every intention leaves a mark. These karmic seeds remain until the right conditions allow them to ripen. Nothing happens by chance. Strong karma creates strong connections. Deep attachments bring souls back together. That is why some people feel strangely familiar the moment we meet them. Perhaps every encounter is the result of causes planted long before this lifetime. And perhaps every meeting is another chance to complete what was once left unfinished. What do you think? Have you ever met someone who felt strangely familiar from the very first moment? Share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your story. Thank you for watching. May wisdom guide your soul. May peace make you whole. Until next time.